Alex had always considered himself someone who understood people. It was a belief he held quietly, but firmly, almost like a skill he had honed over the years. He had learned, through small experiences and casual observations, that reading someone's expressions, gestures, and words often gave away their true character. He would often tell his friends that the first meeting with someone could reveal more than months of conversation, and in many ways he trusted his instincts. But that belief was about to be challenged in ways he could never have imagined. It was a late Thursday morning, and the small coffee shop on the corner of Maple Street was already humming with life. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. Mixing with the faint scent of pastries and the occasional hint of rain that had begun outside, Alex walked in with his usual purpose. He liked this place for its calm energy and the friendly familiarity of the staff. He knew the barista by name, had memorized the little quirks of the regular customers, and found comfort in these small, predictable details. He ordered his usual black coffee with just a touch of milk and scanned the room for a spot to sit. Most tables were taken, but there was one near the window, bathed in soft morning light, waiting for someone to claim it. He set his laptop bag down and took a slow, steady sip of his coffee. It was just starting to warm his hands when he noticed her. She was at the next table, engrossed in a notebook, writing something with intense focus. Her hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, catching the sunlight in a way that made it seem like it had its own glow. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, nothing too flashy. Yet she carried herself with a quiet confidence that drew attention without demanding it. There was a subtle energy about her, the kind that made you curious without even realizing it. Alex couldn't help but notice the way she paused occasionally, tapping her pen against the page thoughtfully. He thought he could almost see the gears turning in her mind. There was something about the way she smiled to herself, a soft, fleeting smile that suggested a private joke or a pleasant memory. He felt a sudden pull of curiosity, that irresistible urge to know more about someone. She seemed so content in her own space. He watched her for a few moments longer, trying to decide whether to interrupt or just let the moment pass. He told himself he wasn't one to intrude, but the thought of leaving without speaking to her felt wrong. There was an unspoken connection he couldn't explain, a feeling that this meeting was more than coincidence. Taking a deep breath, he decided to approach her. "Hi," he said, trying to sound casual as he placed his coffee on the table. She looked up, her eyes meeting his with a mix of surprise and friendliness. "Mind if I sit here?" "Not at all," she replied, her voice warm and easy. There was a calmness in her tone that immediately put him at ease. He sat down, and for a moment neither of them spoke, simply observing the quiet rhythm of the coffee shop around them. Alex noticed how she seemed to take in her surroundings with a thoughtful gaze, as if she were absorbing the world in layers rather than just glancing at it. It was a subtle detail, but it intrigued him even more. "Are you a writer?" he asked finally, nodding toward her notebook. She looked down at it and smiled. "Kind of. I just like to jot down thoughts, ideas, things I notice. It's more for me than anything else." "That's interesting," he said, genuinely curious. "I always find it fascinating how people capture moments. Some people take photos, others write. I guess it's all about holding on to something meaningful." She nodded. "Exactly. Sometimes writing helps me understand what's happening in my own head." Alex felt a connection forming, subtle but undeniable. He found himself sharing things he usually reserved for strangers, small details about his life. The kind of thoughts that usually only emerged in deeper conversations. They talked about the city, about the coffee shop, about little daily routines that somehow revealed personality traits without forcing anyone to be vulnerable. It was easy, natural, and surprisingly comfortable as the conversation continued. Alex began to piece together what he thought he knew about her. She was intelligent, observant, creative, and independent. She had a gentle humor, a calm confidence, and an ability to listen that made him feel heard. It was almost too easy to fit her into a pattern he recognized, and he felt a quiet satisfaction in his ability to understand her so quickly. He told himself that he had met many people before, and had rarely been wrong about their character in such a short time. She asked him questions, too. Small ones at first, about his work, his interests, and his favorite ways to spend free time. Her curiosity was genuine, her attention focused, and it made him feel valued. He found himself laughing more than he expected, relaxing in a way that was rare for him when meeting someone new. There was an unspoken rhythm to their conversation, a give and take that felt effortless and balanced. Hours seemed to slip by unnoticed. They moved from coffee to lunch without really realizing it, sharing stories and observations, exchanging smiles and quiet moments of understanding. Alex felt a growing admiration for her intelligence, her humor, and her kindness. He thought he could see the contours of her personality like the way light revealed the texture of a painting. He convinced himself he understood her, that he could predict her reactions, that he had an insight into her world that few others might have. As the afternoon sun started to dip lower, casting longer shadows across the floor, Alex realized that he didn't want this meeting to end. He wanted to keep talking, to explore this connection further, but the moment felt delicate, like balancing on the edge of something important. He didn't want to rush it or risk ruining the subtle magic that had grown between them. "Would you like to continue this conversation sometime?" he asked, trying to keep his tone light but sincere. She looked at him thoughtfully, her eyes meeting his with a quiet intensity that made his chest tighten. "I'd like that," she said finally, a small smile playing on her lips. "I think there's more to explore." They exchanged numbers, a simple act that somehow felt significant. It was a promise, unspoken but understood, that this encounter was not the end, but the beginning of something that might grow deeper over time. As Alex left the coffee shop, he felt a mixture of excitement and certainty. He was confident he had met someone remarkable, someone he understood and could see clearly. He didn't yet realize that what he thought he knew was only the surface, a glimpse of the person she truly was beneath. Walking back to his apartment, Alex reflected on the meeting. He thought about her expressions, her gestures, her words, and the way she seemed to navigate the world with quiet confidence. He felt a sense of accomplishment, a reassurance in his ability to read people, and a spark of anticipation for what was to come. In his mind, he had already created a map of who she was, outlining her likes, dislikes, humor, and mannerisms. He didn't suspect, not for a moment, that the real journey was only beginning. That evening, he replayed their conversation in his mind, noting the little details that had stood out. He thought about how she laughed, the way she paused when considering her words, the subtle glances that hinted at depth beyond what she shared. He felt a strange mixture of familiarity and curiosity, confident in his understanding, yet unknowingly on the brink of discovering that the person he thought he knew was far more complex than he could imagine. As night fell, Alex checked his phone, feeling a small thrill at the thought of her responding to a message, of continuing the connection that had started so unexpectedly. He didn't yet know that this meeting would challenge many of his assumptions, that the person sitting across from him at that coffee shop would reveal layers of herself that would surprise, inspire, and ultimately change him. But for now, he was content with what he believed he knew, unaware that the real story was only beginning, waiting to unfold in ways he could never predict over the next few weeks. Alex and Mia met several times, each encounter layering more familiarity onto their growing bond. They started with short lunches, quick coffee breaks, and occasional walks through the nearby park. Every meeting felt easy, natural, and full of conversation that flowed effortlessly, as if they were catching up rather than meeting anew each time. Alex found himself enjoying these moments more than he expected, and he often smiled to himself, thinking about how quickly their connection had taken root. At first, Alex's observations were almost comforting. He felt certain he could understand Mia. He would notice the small habits she displayed, how she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear when she was thinking, the way she stirred her coffee with her finger tapping the cup, or the faint laughter that would escape her when he said something unexpectedly funny. These details made her feel familiar to him, like someone he had known longer than he actually had. He shared stories about his work, his family, and small anecdotes from his life. Mia listened with patience and genuine interest, often asking questions that revealed she was paying attention to more than just the surface of his words. Her curiosity felt natural, not probing, and it encouraged him to open up more than he usually would. He felt a sense of connection and validation in being seen, which added to the comfort he felt around her Mia. On the other hand, shared pieces of herself in measured ways. She spoke about her love for certain books, her interest in hiking, and little memories from her childhood that shaped her perspective. Alex noticed patterns, and he thought he could see the larger picture of who she was. He believed he understood her moods, her humor, and her opinions on things. There was a satisfying rhythm to this discovery. He felt a quiet pride in his ability to read her so well. Their conversations often drifted to deeper topics. They spoke about hopes, small dreams, and challenges they had faced. Alex noticed that Mia had a thoughtful approach to life. She rarely gave off strong reactions immediately, but instead considered her words, reflecting a balance between caution and sincerity. This approach, he thought, made her reliable and predictable in a way that fit neatly into the understanding he had already built of her. Alex's friends began to notice his new attachment to these meetings. He would speak about Mia with a quiet certainty, describing her in ways that reflected his assumptions about her. "She's thoughtful, practical, and kind," he would say. "You can tell she's someone who knows herself well." He rarely left room for the unexpected because he was confident he had already grasped her essence. One Saturday morning, Alex and Mia decided to spend the day at the local farmer's market. It was lively and colorful, full of smells, sounds, and movement. They wandered together, discussing the various stalls and picking out fresh produce and baked goods. Alex noticed how Mia interacted with the vendors, polite but warm, and he interpreted her kindness as a reflection of her character. Everything seemed to confirm what he believed he knew about her. As they moved through the market, a small event caught their attention. A street musician was playing a soft melody on a violin, drawing a small crowd. Mia paused, her eyes lighting up at the music. Alex watched her, noting how her expression changed. Her lips curved into a quiet smile. Her posture relaxed, and her eyes seemed almost to shimmer with enjoyment. He thought, this is exactly the kind of person she is. Appreciating small joys in life and finding beauty in ordinary moments, they decided to grab a bite from a food stall. And while they sat on a nearby bench eating, Alex reflected on the ease of spending time with Mia. He thought about how much he had learned about her in just a few weeks, and felt certain that he could predict her reactions, moods, and preferences. He didn't yet realize that his confidence was only based on what she chose to show him, not the full spectrum of her life and experiences. Later that afternoon, they walked along a quiet street lined with old brick buildings. Alex noticed that Mia seemed slightly distracted at times, her gaze lingering on things he hadn't noticed before, cat perched on a windowsill, a colorful mural on the side of a building. He interpreted these moments as curiosity and imagination, qualities he admired. He thought he understood how she approached the world, attentive, reflective, and quietly joyful. Mia occasionally shared stories that hinted at past challenges she had faced, but she did so briefly and without delving into details. Alex acknowledged these pieces and fit them neatly into the picture he was forming. He thought of her as someone strong yet gentle, someone who had faced life with resilience but never let it harden her. He felt proud of his insight, unaware that there was much more beneath the surface that she had yet to reveal. As the sun began to set, they found themselves near a small pond in a park. The light reflected off the water, casting a warm glow over their surroundings. They sat in silence for a while, watching ducks glide across the pond. Alex felt a sense of peace and contentment. He thought about how fortunate he was to have met someone he could understand so well, someone who complemented his own personality and perspective on life. On the way home, they stopped at a small bookstore. Mia browsed the shelves, occasionally pulling out a book and reading a few lines. Alex observed her carefully, noting how she seemed to savor the words, how she held the books gently, and how she selected titles that reflected her interests. He thought he could see her intellectual side clearly, as though he had unlocked yet another layer of her personality. They left the bookstore, carrying a few books each, and walked together until they reached the corner where they would part ways. Alex felt a slight pang of disappointment but reminded himself that their connection was still new, and there would be many more opportunities to spend time together. He was confident that he had formed a good understanding of Mia and that this understanding would only deepen over time. In the following days, Alex noticed that he thought about Mia frequently. He would recall small moments from their meetings, replay conversations in his mind, and feel a sense of satisfaction in his perception of her. He believed he had gained insight into her character, her habits, and her preferences. He felt secure in the knowledge that he could navigate their relationship with ease, anticipating her reactions and understanding her perspective. However, subtle hints began to emerge that suggested Mia might not be entirely as he believed. Occasionally, she would mention a past experience in passing, or a comment would reveal a side of her that did not fit neatly into the picture he had formed. These moments were brief, and Alex often brushed them aside, attributing them to exceptions rather than indications of complexity. He still held on to the comforting assumption that he could understand her, even as small cracks appeared in his perception. One evening, they met for dinner at a small, quiet restaurant. The atmosphere was warm, the lighting soft, and the conversation flowed easily. Mia shared a story about a volunteer project she had been involved in years ago, and Alex listened with interest. The story revealed resilience, compassion, and dedication, qualities that deepened his admiration for her. Yet he still thought he had a firm grasp on her character, interpreting each story through the lens of his assumptions. As the meal ended, they walked together under the glow of streetlights. The night air was cool, carrying the faint scent of flowers from nearby gardens. Alex felt a sense of contentment, a quiet certainty that he had met someone extraordinary. He didn't realize that the real Mia, the depth, the surprises, the hidden layers had yet to show itself. He was comfortable, perhaps too comfortable, in his understanding of her, unaware that the journey of truly knowing someone is rarely straightforward. When they finally said goodnight, Alex walked home with a sense of anticipation for their next meeting. He thought about the ease, the laughter, and the small shared moments that had come to define their time together. He felt confident, almost proud, in his ability to understand her. Little did he know that the real challenge, discovering who Mia truly was just beginning, and it would take patience, openness, and humility to see her fully. Over the next days, Alex continued to reflect on their interactions. He noticed the comfort he felt around Mia, the way their conversations flowed naturally, and the sense of predictability that seemed reassuring. Yet there were fleeting moments of curiosity, brief glimpses of unpredictability that hinted at a depth he had not yet uncovered. These hints were subtle, easily overlooked, but they planted seeds of awareness that would grow in importance later. Despite the small signs, Alex remained confident. He believed he knew what he was getting with Mia, that he understood her personality, her humor, and her way of approaching life. He was unaware that understanding someone fully requires more than observation, more than intuition, and more than assumptions. It requires patience, listening beyond words, and the willingness to be surprised. A few weeks had passed since Alex felt he truly understood Mia, and yet that sense of certainty was about to be tested in ways he could not have imagined. It started subtly, with small, unexpected details that didn't fit the picture he had carefully painted in his mind. One Friday evening, they met at a quiet little cafe that overlooked the river. The place had a warm glow, the kind that made people slow down and notice the small details around them. Alex had chosen it because it felt familiar, safe, and perfect for conversation. He thought he knew exactly how the evening would unfold, and he welcomed that comfort. Mia arrived with a smile that reached her eyes, and for a moment, Alex's confidence in understanding her seemed justified. They exchanged their usual greetings and settled at a corner table. The conversation began, as it usually did, with laughter, shared stories, and observations about their day. Alex felt the rhythm of familiarity settle over them, the kind that made him think he could anticipate every response and every reaction. Yet, even as he felt certain, a small, unspoken curiosity lingered in the back of his mind. During dinner, Mia mentioned something about a volunteer trip she had taken a few years ago. At first, Alex listened with his usual assumptions, thinking he could place the experience neatly into the understanding he already had of her. But as she continued, he noticed a depth in her voice, a weight behind her words that suggested something more profound than a simple story. She spoke about the challenges she faced, the people she met, and the moments that changed her perspective. For the first time, Alex felt a flicker of uncertainty. There was more here than he had assumed. He asked questions, genuinely curious. But Mia's answers were careful, measured, and rich with subtle details. She didn't offer herself fully, but she revealed enough to hint at complexity. Alex realized he had been underestimating her experiences. The person he thought he had fully understood had layers he hadn't anticipated. It was unsettling, but also fascinating. He found himself leaning in, listening more intently, eager to understand the woman sitting across from him. After dinner, they decided to take a walk along the river. The evening air was cool, carrying a faint scent of rain from earlier showers. Streetlights reflected on the water, creating a soft, shimmering path that seemed almost magical. Alex tried to process what he had learned from their conversation. He had been so confident in his understanding of Mia, yet now he sensed that there were depths he had not anticipated. It was a subtle shift, but it left him both curious and slightly uncertain. Mia talked about her love for art and how she had spent months visiting galleries in another city. She described the people she met, the stories she heard, and how the experience had shaped her way of seeing the world. Alex noticed that her eyes lit up as she spoke, and he realized that this enthusiasm, this passion, was a side of her he had not fully appreciated before. He thought he knew her interests, her personality, her habits. Yet here she was, revealing facets that expanded his understanding. Over the next few days, Alex found himself reflecting on their interactions more deeply than usual. He replayed their conversations, recalling the small details, the shifts in tone, and the moments where Mia had hinted at a life beyond what he had assumed. He realized that he had been reading her as if she were an open book, expecting predictability, when in fact she had her own timing, her own ways of revealing herself. It was a lesson in patience and observation, and it made him more aware of the limits of his assumptions. One evening, they attended a small gathering at a mutual friend's apartment. It was informal, with a mix of people from different walks of life. Mia moved through the room with ease, engaging in conversations with a confidence that surprised Alex. She navigated the social setting with a balance of curiosity and a composure that he had not fully anticipated. Alex noticed her listening more than speaking, yet when she did speak, her words carried thoughtfulness and insight. He felt both admiration and a growing awareness that he had underestimated her abilities. During the evening, a conversation arose about personal challenges and how people overcame them. Mia shared a brief, poignant story about a difficult decision she had made in the past, one that had required courage and resilience. Alex listened, struck by the strength she displayed, and realized that he had only seen the surface of her character. There were aspects of her life, experiences that shaped her in profound ways that he had not yet glimpsed. The certainty he had once felt about understanding her began to feel fragile. Later that night, as they walked home, Alex reflected on the evening. He realized that his assumptions had created a limited view, a version of Mia that fit neatly into his expectations. Yet, the reality was more nuanced, more complex, and infinitely more interesting. He felt a mixture of humility and curiosity. Recognizing that true understanding requires more than observation, it requires listening, openness, and the willingness to be surprised. In the days that followed, Alex approached his interactions with Mia differently. He listened more, asked questions without rushing to conclusions, and allowed space for her to reveal herself at her own pace. He noticed small details that he had previously overlooked, the way her expression changed when she was deep in thought, the subtle shifts in tone when she discussed meaningful experiences, the quiet moments of joy that appeared unexpectedly. Each observation added a layer to his understanding, but none were definitive. They were pieces of a larger, unfolding picture. One afternoon, Mia invited Alex to a small local exhibit at a community art center. As they walked through the gallery, he noticed the intensity with which she examined each piece. She asked questions, made connections between the art and her own experiences, and expressed insights that surprised him. It became clear that her perspective was informed not only by knowledge but also by empathy and reflection. Alex felt a sense of awe, realizing that he had only scratched the surface of her depth. After the exhibit, they sat in a nearby cafe, discussing the art and their interpretations. Alex found himself learning from her in ways he hadn't anticipated. Her observations were thoughtful, often challenging his own views. And he realized that understanding her required more than assumptions. It required engagement, curiosity, and humility. He felt a renewed sense of respect for her, complexity, and a growing appreciation for the person she was becoming in his eyes. The next week, Alex noticed small, subtle moments where Mia's life intersected with experiences he had not predicted. A brief mention of a childhood adventure, a fleeting reference to a personal challenge, or a small anecdote about her work revealed dimensions of her character he hadn't anticipated. Each revelation, though seemingly minor, added depth to his understanding and reminded him that people are rarely fully visible at first glance. Mia's life was rich with experiences, emotions, and perspectives that could not be fully captured by assumptions or initial impressions. Alex began to reflect on his own approach to relationships and understanding people. He realized that his confidence in reading others, while sometimes useful, had limitations. Mia had shown him that understanding someone fully required patience, attention, and the willingness to let them reveal themselves on their own terms. It was a lesson in humility, one that challenged his assumptions and expanded his capacity for empathy. Alex had begun to notice that the person he thought he knew was far more intricate than he had ever imagined. It wasn't just small surprises or fleeting moments. It was a pattern, a series of revelations that forced him to reconsider everything he believed about understanding someone so quickly. He realized that Mia had depth, complexity, and experiences that she revealed only in her own time, and he needed to approach his connection with her differently. One Saturday morning, Mia invited Alex to join her at a small community workshop she had been involved in. It was a place where people came together to create art from recycled materials, transforming everyday items into sculptures and decorations. Alex was curious, but unsure what to expect. He had thought he understood her tastes, her hobbies, and her interests, but this was something new, something he hadn't anticipated. As they entered the workshop, Alex noticed the ease with which Mia interacted with everyone there. She greeted the organizers warmly, spoke with the participants with genuine interest, and engaged in the activities with both enthusiasm and focus. Alex observed quietly, realizing that this was a side of her he had never seen before. She was not only creative but also patient, empathetic, and deeply committed to making a positive contribution to her community. They began working on a project together, assembling materials, discussing ideas, and laughing over small mistakes. Alex noticed how Mia encouraged others, offering guidance without taking control. He realized that she had a natural ability to bring out the best in people. He had always admired her intelligence and humor, but this experience added a new dimension. He saw her kindness, leadership, and dedication in action. It was humbling for him, a reminder that understanding someone fully requires seeing them in multiple contexts, not just in familiar or comfortable settings. After the workshop, they walked through a nearby park, carrying their finished creations. The sun was warm, the breeze gentle, and the world seemed to slow down around them. Alex reflected on what he had observed. He had thought he knew Mia's personality, her values, and her approach to life. But now he realized that there were entire layers he had not yet discovered. Each new experience with her revealed something unexpected, and he began to understand that his initial assumptions had been incomplete. Mia spoke about her motivations for participating in the workshop, explaining how she had been involved in community projects for years and how they had shaped her understanding of people and life. She spoke with humility, never boasting, but her passion and dedication were clear. Alex listened attentively, feeling a mixture of admiration and awe. He realized that her depth was not just in her thoughts or words, but in her actions, the consistency of her character, and the way she approached life with intentionality and care. In the following days, Alex reflected on his evolving understanding of Mia. He realized that his confidence in reading people had been both a strength and a limitation. It had allowed him to connect quickly, to notice details, and to form impressions. but it had also created a narrow view, a comfort in predictability that was now being challenged. Mia's presence was teaching him patience, observation, and the importance of listening without rushing to conclusions. One evening, they met at a quiet bookstore cafe. As they browsed the shelves, Mia pulled out a collection of essays by an author Alex had never read. She explained why the book resonated with her, sharing insights about the author's perspective on life, human nature, and personal growth. Alex was struck by her thoughtful analysis and the depth of her reflection. He realized that understanding someone fully meant appreciating not only their experiences, but also their interpretations, values, and insights. Mia was teaching him to see beyond surface-level details, to recognize the richness of her mind and heart. Over time, Alex began to notice more subtle aspects of Mia's personality. He observed how she handled challenges, both small and large, with grace and composure. He noticed how she approached disagreements or misunderstandings with calm reasoning and empathy. Each observation added layers to his understanding, but none offered a complete picture. Mia was complex, multifaceted, and ever-evolving, and Alex found himself both humbled and captivated by the journey of discovery. Their conversations deepened, moving beyond daily routines and small stories to topics that touched on philosophy, morality, and personal values. Alex found himself challenged, prompted to reconsider his assumptions, and encouraged to reflect more deeply on his own beliefs. He realized that true connection required openness, humility, and the willingness to embrace the unexpected. Mia's revelations, small and large, were invitations to expand his perspective, to see her not as a puzzle to be solved, but as a person to be understood over time. One afternoon, Mia shared a personal story about a time in her life when she had faced significant adversity. She spoke about the fear, uncertainty, and resilience it had required, and how it had shaped her approach to challenges and relationships. Alex listened silently, absorbing not just the facts of her experience but the strength and wisdom embedded within it. He realized that his initial assumptions had barely scratched the surface of her character, and he felt a deep respect for the courage and authenticity she displayed as their bond continued to grow. Alex noticed changes in his own perspective. He became more attentive, more patient, and more willing to let Mia reveal herself in her own time. He no longer rushed to conclusions or assumed he had fully understood her. Instead, he embraced the mystery, the unpredictability, and the richness of her personality. Each new revelation, each unexpected detail, is a reminder that true understanding is a journey, not a destination. One weekend, they attended a small cultural festival in the city. There were performers, artists, and food vendors from different backgrounds. Mia engaged with the event fully, observing the performances with curiosity, discussing the artistry with insight, and interacting with people in a way that reflected her openness and respect. Alex watched her, noticing nuances he had previously overlooked, the way her eyes lit up with genuine interest, the subtle ways she encouraged performers and artists, and the quiet joy she derived from connecting with new experiences. It was another layer of her depth revealed, another challenge to his assumptions. After the festival, they walked along a quiet street, discussing the performances and the people they had met. Alex realized that he was learning as much about life from Mia as he was about her. Her perspective, shaped by experience, reflection, and empathy, offered him insights he had never considered. He understood that knowing her was not about predicting her actions or fitting her into preconceived notions, but about being present, listening, and appreciating the unfolding story of her life in the days that followed. Alex approached their interactions with renewed curiosity. He asked more questions, listened more carefully, and allowed space for Mia to reveal herself without pressure or expectation. He observed small details: the way she reacted to news, the way she expressed joy or frustration, and the subtle shifts in her demeanor during thoughtful moments. Each observation added depth to his understanding, yet none were definitive. Mia was not a puzzle to be solved. She was a person to be discovered gradually, fully, and respectfully. Alex began to notice how much his own mindset had changed. He was no longer focused on predicting her actions or categorizing her personality. Instead, he was attentive, open, and engaged. He realized that the journey of truly knowing someone is ongoing. It's filled with surprises, lessons, and moments of profound connection. Mia had taught him to let go of assumptions, to embrace complexity, and to value authenticity above predictability. Alex had spent months with Mia, learning, observing, and slowly unraveling the depth of her personality. Every interaction, every shared experience, had taught him that understanding someone is not instantaneous, and that assumptions, no matter how confident, can often fall short. Part 5 begins as their connection has grown into something profound, rooted in trust, respect, and genuine understanding. It was a cool Sunday morning when Alex received a text from Mia, inviting him to join her on a hike. She had discovered a trail outside the city that offered panoramic views of the mountains and forests. Alex, excited at the prospect, quickly agreed. The plan was simple: walk, talk, and enjoy the natural scenery together. Yet Alex felt a subtle nervousness. In the past, surprises from Mia had taught him that her life held complexities he hadn't anticipated. This hike could be just another ordinary day. Or it could reveal yet another layer of her character. They met at the trailhead, backpacks slung over their shoulders, and began walking. The path was narrow, lined with trees, whose leaves swayed gently in the morning breeze. Birds chirped from high branches, and sunlight filtered through the foliage, casting dappled patterns on the ground. As they walked, their conversation was light at first: discussions about the weather, the changing seasons, and shared memories from past hikes. Alex felt a sense of comfort, enjoying the rhythm of walking alongside Mia and the subtle intimacy of shared silence as they ascended. The trail became steeper, and the physical exertion prompted a different kind of conversation. They spoke about challenges they had faced in life, the moments that tested them, and the lessons they had learned. Mia shared a story about a time she had worked in a community shelter, helping people who were struggling with hardships she could barely imagine. She spoke without judgment, emphasizing empathy and understanding rather than pity. Alex listened, absorbing the weight and sincerity of her words. He realized that these experiences had shaped her resilience, compassion, and quiet strength. Alex noticed how Mia approached difficulties with balance. She spoke thoughtfully, without rushing to conclusions, and seemed to extract meaning and learning from every experience. He reflected on his own approach to challenges, recognizing how much he could learn from her perspective. He realized that understanding someone deeply is not only about observing their actions, but also about appreciating the way they think, respond, and interpret the world around them. As they reached a clearing with a view of the mountains, stretching endlessly into the horizon, they paused. The wind brushed against their faces, carrying the scent of pine and earth. Alex took a deep breath, feeling the vastness of the landscape and the quiet intimacy of the moment. He looked at Mia and noticed how her eyes reflected not just the beauty around them, but also her appreciation for life's small and grand moments alike. It struck him that she did not just live her life, she experienced it fully, with awareness, curiosity, and gratitude. They sat on a large rock overlooking the valley below. Alex felt compelled to speak about the journey they had shared. "I've learned so much from you over the past few months," he said, his voice sincere. "Not just about life, but about understanding people, patience, and seeing things in ways I never considered before." Mia smiled softly. "I think that's part of life, isn't it? We can't really know everything about someone at once. We discover, we listen, and we allow each other to grow." Alex nodded, appreciating the wisdom in her words. He realized that the connection they shared was not built on assumptions or quick judgments, but on a willingness to see each other fully, to allow surprises and revelations to unfold naturally. He understood now that relationships were a journey, not a destination, and that the depth of understanding came from patience, empathy, and openness. After a long pause, Mia spoke again. "There's something I want to show you." She led him further along the trail to a small hidden waterfall cascading over rocks into a clear pool below. The sound of rushing water filled the air, creating a sense of calm and wonder. Alex felt a mixture of awe and gratitude. Mia had chosen to share this secret spot, a place that few knew about, and it felt like an invitation into a part of her world he had not yet seen. It was a gesture of trust, a revelation that went beyond words. They spent hours near the waterfall, talking, laughing, and occasionally sitting in comfortable silence. Alex noticed how Mia's presence seemed to encourage him to reflect on his own life, his assumptions, and the way he approached relationships. He felt a deep sense of connection, not just with her, but with himself. As if understanding her had also led him to a deeper understanding of his own capacity for empathy, patience, and appreciation. As the sun began to set, casting golden hues across the water and trees, they prepared to leave. Alex felt a mixture of contentment and awe. The day had been simple yet profound, filled with moments that revealed the richness of Mia's personality and the depth of their connection. He realized that the journey of knowing her was ongoing, that each day brought new discoveries, insights, and opportunities for growth. In the weeks that followed, Alex and Mia continued to explore life together, sharing experiences that ranged from ordinary to extraordinary. They attended cultural events, visited art exhibitions, volunteered in their community, and spent quiet evenings simply talking about their thoughts and dreams. Each interaction revealed layers of Mia he had not anticipated, and Alex embraced the unpredictability and richness of her character. Alex found himself changing in the process. He had learned to let go of the need to predict or categorize people, to appreciate the unfolding nature of personality and experience. He approached relationships with more humility, curiosity, and patience. He realized that the true value of connection lies not in certainty or assumptions, but in openness, empathy, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of Mia's apartment watching the city lights twinkle below, Alex reflected on how far they had come. "I never realized how much I was holding on to assumptions," he said. "I thought I knew you completely, but you've shown me that there's always more beneath the surface." Mia reached over and took his hand gently. "And you've shown me that it's possible to be seen and understood without rushing to judgment. That's a rare and beautiful thing." Alex smiled, feeling the warmth of her hand and the truth of her words. He understood that the connection they shared was built on trust, respect, and the willingness to reveal themselves gradually, authentically, and honestly. He had learned that knowing someone fully is not a task to be completed, but a journey to be embraced. In the following months, their bond continued to deepen. They faced challenges, navigated disagreements, and supported each other through life's ups and downs. Each experience reinforced the lessons Alex had learned. Patience, empathy, humility, and openness are the foundations of true understanding. Mia's presence had transformed his perspective, teaching him that people are multifaceted, unpredictable, and endlessly fascinating. By the end of Part 5, Alex had reached a place of profound appreciation for Mia and the journey they shared. He understood that the person he had thought he knew was far richer, deeper, and more complex than he could have imagined. The journey of discovering her had not only revealed her layers, but it also reshaped his own approach to relationships and life. He embraced the ongoing adventure of truly knowing another person, filled with curiosity, respect, and a deep sense of connection. The story concludes with Alex and Mia sitting together in quiet companionship, watching the world around them. There are no final answers, no ultimate conclusions. Only the beauty of shared presence, mutual understanding, and the ongoing journey of discovery. Alex now knows that understanding someone is not about certainty or assumptions, but about openness, patience, and the willingness to embrace each new revelation with appreciation and care. It is a journey without end, and he is grateful to share it with Mia, whose presence continues to inspire, challenge, and deepen his understanding of life, people, and the profound connection that comes from truly seeing another human being.